Module 3, Modeling the Coaster using AutoCAD Extrude and Subtract commands. We're going to open up the Project 3, Designing for 3D Printing, download the B-size mechanical metric title block. We'll save the file with our initials as Lab 3A, and then we'll use AutoCAD to create our own design, and we'll create our design according to these dimensions here. And so we'll use our metric title block, and it will be 90 millimeters by 90 millimeters. And it will have a radius of 15 millimeters at the corners. And then the thickness around here will be 6 millimeters. We'll extrude it to be 2.5 millimeters, and that's a perfect thickness for 3D printing. Once we've modeled that, we will then create the coaster holder according to the dimensions, and then we'll bring it into the slicer and print. The instructions are located right here, and if we click on them, we can see the instructions, and this is taken directly from our 20 projects for 3D printing textbook. And so the author wants us to make these coasters, and we can create these different designs. But what's important is to be able to print it so that all of the components are attached. And so when we print or when we design, everything needs to be connected so that we have a valid geometry. Here's the dimensions for the holder, and we can get started. We'll go to the Module 3 and download the title block. Open it. Alright, so here's our metric title block, and we're going to work on this in model space. So we'll click over here to model, and in model space what we're going to do is we're going to set up our grid and our snap. And so here we are at the main interface for AutoCAD, and we have the ribbon here across the top. I can enable the menu bar by clicking on this down arrow. I can hide the menu bar. I can show the menu bar. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a drafting standard for snap and grid. So I'm going to turn my snap on and my grid on, and we're going to set the snap at 5, and we'll set the grid at 10. Polar tracking will enable, and that'll make it easier for us to draw lines. And then object snap will enable as well. We'll say OK. Go to the home menu, select layer 0 for object, select the line command, and then we'll draw this line out 90 millimeters. Whoops. And then we'll go down 90 millimeters, and so you can type 90, or you can simply move the cursor until you get to 90. Bring it back this way 90. And you can also use what's called direct distance, which if I turn off the grid, you'll see this green tracking line. And that's our polar tracking that we turned on in our drafting settings. And what that allows us to do when it's on is just point the cursor in a direction and then type in the value. And so we could type in 90 here, and then we have our shape for that. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to put a fillet around the edge, which is going to be 15 millimeters. To fillet the geometry, what we'll do is we'll go to the fillet command. And to use the fillet command, what you can do to get help is you can hover over the fillet command, and it will give you a help screen. And so essentially they're showing a ping pong paddle here and then applying a radius to it. by selecting point 1 and point 2. So when we use a fillet, what we need to do is to use the down arrow here and to program in a radius, and we'll put in that radius at 15. Click on the two corners, right click, repeat the fillet. And we can either go back to the fillet command and click on it again, or we can right click and say repeat. Alright, that's our general shape for the part. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to then offset that 6 millimeters. So we'll go to the offset command, and just like the other commands, if you hover over the command long enough, it will give you a help screen. And so offset will create a parallel line, and it'll not only create a line, but it'll also create an arc. And so if we say offset, what it's asking us for is the distance, and so we'll type in 6, enter, select the arc, and then select to the inside, select the line. And you could go to the outside, but that wouldn't work right. So we'll offset these to the inside, select the line, select the side. And then we'll hit enter to end the command. Alright, and so the next part is where we can be creative and create these different shapes. And so you can see that the author's made a few different ones. He's made one with circular geometry, another one with lines, another here with lines, and another one with polygons. And so polygons would be a command that you could enter in here. We're going to start off by creating a coaster design, and you can make the design different. We'll just make one that's similar to the way the author has with these arc type shapes. It doesn't have to be exactly the same as this one, and you can modify as you see. You can put a design in here of your own. We've had a number of students who have done some really cool coaster designs, and if we take a look at some of them, here's one of the students that created an owl coaster and a number of other things. All right, here's an Oakton coaster that we came up with. Back to our drawing. And so we've created this shape that we're going to then use to create the geometry. I'm going to turn the grid back on so we can work with that. And then I'm just going to draw a circle, and I can draw a circle. I can offset that circle, or I can draw another one, depending on if you want all the thicknesses to be the same. I'll just repeat the circle command by right-clicking. And then I'll draw another circle. And what's important is that everything is connected. And so as we start to create these shapes, if we were to 3D print this the way that it is right now, we would have 3 separate pieces. We'd have one piece here, another piece here, and a third piece. And so part of working with CAD will be to design this. And we can draw things like arcs if we want to. We can come in here with an arc, and we can put an arc on here. And I'm just going to bring it a little bit over here. I can use the trim command, and what the trim command will do is it will allow me to remove some of the material. And so if I say trim, I can just slide it, hold the left mouse button, and it will trim anything up to a point. And then we can grab some other geometry. We can say maybe a line or an arc from this end point, and I'll go like this, repeat it. And then I'll trim those as well. We want to have enough material so that it kind of holds together. So we want to have something that kind of holds it here and here. If we want to put some additional lines here, we can say, I'll draw, and I'm going to turn off the snap here. Trim it. And let's undo that. And then we could connect this from here to here. And we can trim that as well. And so the idea is that you're almost making like a road where you can drive through it and keep all of these different elements connected. I'm going to close this one back up. I can hit a grip, bring that closed. Just put another arc in. And then we can add just a little bit more geometry over here. If we want, we can offset that 6. And then, like I said, it's almost like you want to have a road, and you can use these grips to resize and reshape those. Trim. I'm going to bring this one over here a little bit. And then I think I need a little bit more maybe over on this end here, because I want this to be able to be held together when I 3D print it. Alrighty, so now that we have a shape created, whoops, what we want to do is to save this. And so we'll say File, Save As, and then we'll save it with our initials. -lab 3A. We'll model it using press pull. To do that, what we'll do is we'll switch over to modeling using 3D Basics or 3D Modeling. If we use 3D Basics, there's less commands. It's a little bit more straightforward. And what we can do is we can press pull our shape using this press pull. And so when we press pull it, what we want to do is select press pull and then hover within the geometry and select it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab an isometric view, Or I'm just going to say, let me try that again. I'm going to grab an isometric view. And press pull it. And I'll bring that up 2.5 millimeters. All right. Now that we've created the model, if we click on it and we look at the quick properties, we can see that that's a 3D solid, and that's a form that we can then bring in for 3D printing. We'll put it on the title block by selecting the ANSIB title block on the Layout tab. Double click in the viewport, double click on the mouse. Or you could also go to, you could type Z for zoom and A for all. And then what we'll do is we'll bring that into an isometric view. I'm going to switch it back over to the two-dimensional drafting and annotation workspace. And I'll say view. Turn on my toolbar. View. 3D view. Southeast isometric. Double click outside of the title block viewport. Double click on student name. Lab number 3A. And then we can save this one more time. File, Save As, and we'll save it with our initials as an AutoCAD drawing file. Keep an eye on where you're placing that, because we'll be turning that in to the D2L Module 3 file folder. And then I'm going to export it also as a model, an STL model. So I'm going to go into model space here. I'm going to hit the big red A, and I'm going to say export. Other file formats. I'm going to choose STL. I'm going to hit save, and then I will select the model and hit enter. Once we have it modeled and exported as an STL, in the next video I will show you how to slice it for 3D printing. That ends this video.